First off, I'm going to show you a photo up on the board. And what I want you to do with that photo is I want you to just look at it and think for a couple seconds. You don't have to say anything or raise your hands. That photo wasn't pretty by any means. I'm going to ask you a few questions. Have you ever heard people talk about not wanting to vaccinate their children? Do you think these diseases we vaccinate still exist? Do you think it is dangerous to have unvaccinated children attending public schools? Now, I am no expert or doctor, but I am a student who plans to study medicine, and I am passionate about the technology we have today to keep us safe. I have been doing extensive research for the past couple of weeks, and I feel I am comfortable and capable to state the facts about vaccinating your children and the importance of it. So let's begin. People are starting to adopt an anti-vaccination view because they think the diseases are gone. They are gone because of all the people who continue to vaccinate. It is essential that we continue to vaccinate our children to protect them and avoid the reoccurrence of those diseases that we were afraid of in the first place. Today I'm going to cover the problem and the need that unvaccinated children are attending public schools. Now this is a problem because they're putting children in families at risk of contracting harmful and deadly diseases. I'm also going to talk about the satisfaction and the solution of what you can do to help stop an outbreak of harmful diseases. And I'm also going to talk about the benefits and the consequences of vaccinating and not vaccinating your children. If you do plan to vaccinate your children and others around you do, you and your children will be at a much lesser risk of catching a disease if you do vaccinate your children. If we stop allowing unvaccinated children into our public schools, we can stop the chance of this disease being spread. Therefore, this will motivate more people to vaccinate their children, and it will also show that vaccinating is a very serious issue. This means we will have enough protection to protect those who truly cannot vaccinate their children. And this will protect you and your families against contracting really harmful diseases that can be spread easily at public schools. Now let's move on and talk about some of the problems created by people not vaccinating their children. First off, herd immunity is something that we as people create by vaccinating our children. So, for example, if I were to vaccinate my kids against the flu, and the flu broke out in the house, none of us would be getting the flu because we're all vaccinated for it, if the flu vaccination string actually did work. But over these last couple years, you can see the numbers of people that have vaccinated their children. The disease is just going down and down and down. But in the beginning, there was people just dying left and right from harmful diseases. And once the vaccinations came out, those diseases started to disappear. And that's something that's called herd immunity.
And right now, I do have an example of in the 1950s until about 2002. Right here you can see there's more than 700,000 cases of vaccinations. And this is around the time when the vaccine came out for measles, or for polio. Oh, measles. And it went back down, and now it went to 0, and it came back up in just a few, and back down to 0 in 1990. But
because protecting those who cannot honestly vaccinate their children due to religious reasons or health issues, they may be allergic to something in the vaccine. So, decreasing our herd immunity is a huge problem because of all the strength that we've built up and all the immunity. People are going to stop vaccinating their children, and it's going to start getting worse and worse, and more diseases are going to be able to be out there, and people are going to be able to contract them more because no one's getting vaccinated. Recently, there have been more and more cases arising about the reemergence of certain diseases due to the decrease in vaccinations. So, a lot of vaccinations people have been saying, oh, it causes this and this, but there's been a huge reemergence of places out there, such as Disneyland, who contracted tons of measles and had an outbreak, and this is because a lot of people stopped vaccinating their children. Another problem is people think the diseases are gone, and they're not. attend public schools. That is, children who aren't having their proper vaccinations, they shouldn't be allowed to be coming to public schools because it's a huge risk to the other children that are trying to go there and to their families. Another thing is, many of you have probably heard this, and you might have thought about this when I asked you the questions earlier in the beginning about people you thought that don't vaccinate their children. Many people argue that vaccinating your children will cause autism. And that statement's not true at all. There was a doctor who wrote a report about it, about how vaccinations can cause autism. And he later admitted that his findings were false and he was paid to do that. So no, it won't cause autism, yet they can't prove that it honestly cannot. Another thing that people talk about is after they give their children their vaccinations, they swear they turned autistic. Well, most children who have autism don't develop the signals until around the time of the vaccination. So it really probably was not the vaccination who caused or what caused the children to have autism. And also there are people who honestly cannot vaccinate their children because of medical reasons. Like I already mentioned, they could be allergic to an additive that's in the vaccine. And we need to be respectful and we need to be able to accommodate their needs to keep all of us safe as well. And as a whole, we really need to vaccinate our children in order for them to attend public schools, and that will protect the whole community at school and around everywhere else too. If you think about it, would you send your child to school if they had a contagious flu where they were throwing up and sick, and you knew that other kids at school would get that flu? It's kind of the same with vaccinations. You shouldn't send a kid who doesn't have an immune system to protect himself against the diseases because he could get them from someone else, or someone else could get them from him because he was not immune to it and could not be protected and stop him from having it. Actually, recently in Spokane, according to CNN, a public school started temporarily expelling their students until they finished they were current on their vaccinations. They were up to date and they had all the ones they needed. They offered a lot of free clinics and a lot of really good things that the students could just come in and get the vaccinations and they were able to go right back to school. It was nice to find that most people did comply with the school's decision and they did get vaccinated. There's very few who still are not complying with the idea. When vaccinating your children, you'll be able to send your kids, if kids are vaccinated, you'll be able to send them to public schools and not have the worry of them contracting life-threatening diseases such as polio, measles, which polio is not now, but you'll also have the satisfaction of knowing your child is safe at school from all these bad diseases. And you did your part as a parent to protect your child and protect other people's children as well. It's very important to continue to live in a country where we're fortunate enough to have this medical technology to keep us safe from such awful diseases. My mom, she says that she remembered she was young when the polio vaccination came out and people were swarming to get it. And it should still be like that because vaccinations are very important and they do protect us. I did get a lot of my information from the Centers of Disease Control and Prevention. And finally, I want all of you to imagine a country that was filled with polio, measles, mumps, and all those awful diseases, and most children not living past the age of 3. I also want you to imagine the country you live in today, a place that's safe, has medical advances, and vaccines to help keep you safe from these awful diseases. And I want you to picture your children living to childhood. So in the next 30